Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. So today, in honor of Halloween, and especially Friday the 13th, we're going to talk about the scariest book I've ever read. But before we do, I have a special guest, special assistant today with me, and that is Peepee. Peepee said, "Please, Daddy, put on my caterpillar outfit." He loves his caterpillar costume so much. He does. He said, Daddy, I think it's such a fine costume. Anyway, Peepee has about 15 costumes, so get ready because for the month of October, Peepee will be in many of his costumes. This is just one of them, and he loves it so much. But anyway, it doubles as a winter coat. So anyway, one of the questions, I had to. Hello. One of the questions that I get asked more, well, actually the question that I get asked more than any other question as a booktuber, as a reader, but no, like seriously, like the question I get tweeted out the most to, the question I get in the comment sections the most is, you know, you would think it would be, what's your favorite book? But I think everybody by now knows that To Kill a Mockingbird is my favorite book. The day that I read the book that tops that, and no, it won't be John Green's new book, I was hoping, but my hopes fizzled. So anyway, but I will say this, I'm reading Maggie Stiefvater's new book, which is actually my very first book of hers that I've ever read. I'm reading The Raven Boys for Spookathon starting on Sunday. Oh my God, Spookathon is the 16th through the 22nd. I did a video on it. Go check out Books and Lala. She did a whole announcement. She's the one hosting it with a couple other booktubers. So go check out her video about it. Do Spookathon. It's so much fun, you guys. But anyway, I'm reading The Raven Boys. But when I was buying John Green's new book, I saw that All the Crooked Saints just came out, and I was like, oh, this is supposed to be really good. I started it last night on Audible. Oh, it is fantastic. Okay, on the heels of reading The Crap, that I think is the John Green new book, which I know a lot of people love. Listen, it's so interesting about the John Green books. This is more of like kind of like a rambling video, but oh well. It's interesting because like, when people ask me, they're like, what was your favorite John Green book that you ever read? Honest to God, Paper Towns was my favorite. It kind of goes in order like this. I used to say The Fault in Our Stars, but I think it's like a close tie for The Fault in Our Stars. I mean, The Fault in Our Stars is better than Paper Towns. So it would be Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, An Abundance of Catherines, and Looking for Alaska. Turtles All the Way Down would be the last one. And it's really interesting. I'm going to do a full review on here. You know, I don't know. It made me, I will tell you what it made me think about last night as a writer as I finished up the book, is that, you know, when you have an author that you absolutely love, and we're going to talk about that today because I have an author that scares the hell out of me every time I read his books. You know, if you're expecting to have this amazing book be the next one that comes out, if that makes sense, and it kind of falls short of that for you, it doesn't make you think that that author has lost it. What it makes you think is, did I really like the books before, or did I read them at a time that it meant something different to me? If I had read them now, would it really be that big of a deal? Those kinds of things, you know? Like, I really wonder if I went back now and I read The Fault in Our Stars, if I would think it was that fantastic of a book. And that's sad when an author's newest book makes you question their past. Does that make sense? So, and John Green's not the only one. Benjamin Elier-Science, who wrote, you know, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I read his newest one, and I felt similar. So it's like, you know, I would think that it would be really, really hard for an author of that caliber to continue to just put out these great books. But a lot of people love Turtles All the Way Down. So I think if you're a John Green fan, you should go check it out and make that decision for your own. I think the wonderful thing about BookTube is that we have the ability to all have different opinions about the same books. So, you know, what somebody loves, somebody else is going to hate or not like, you know? So anyway, but let's get right into the question that I get asked the most, which is, excuse me, I've been sick for like 4 days now. Peter, what is the scariest book you've ever read? And that book, for me, is Richard Lehman's Endless Night. Now, I have to tell you, when I read this book, my ex and I were living in this apartment that was kind of isolated and it overlooked this lake, and it was kind of in a spooky area. And he was out of town for a conference, and I was reading this book by myself. And I have to tell you, I've watched most scary movies, and tonight, you better bet your butt, I'm gonna be watching Friday the 13th movies. By the way, I am live streaming tonight at 9 p.m. for a super long Friday the 13th pajama party on my YouNow. It's listed below, go check it out. It's free, you can watch it, you can interact with me, ask me whatever kind of questions you want to, it's really fun. So anyway, But when I read this book, I would like lock the doors. And I read it like in 2 or 3 nights. I was so scared. I have never been so scared reading a book. And like I was saying, like I've watched a lot of scary movies, but movies don't do that for me. Like this book terrified the SH out of me. I was so scared. And what's really, really cool is that this was the very first book that I ever read of his. And I must have read it in the summer, because I got it at Borders back in the day on a table that was called Beach Reads. Do you guys remember when like Borders and Barnes & Noble, they would like put out, maybe they still do, but like tables that are like great books for spring break or Beach Reads. And this was one of them. It was on there and I had never heard of Richard Lehman. I had read a lot of Dean Koontz. I had read a lot of Jack Ketchum, but I had never heard of Richard Lehman, and I love horror novels. I have never been able to get into Stephen King, and I'm not really sure why. I think part of it is that I'm fearful of the length of the novels, if that makes sense. But the awesome thing about this is that after I read this, I ended up reading like 10 of his books. Oh, I'll tell you another person that I absolutely love. Okay, I trimmed my beard yesterday, you guys, and it's like driving me nuts. Is Robert McGammon, who wrote Boy's Life. I mean, his books are fantastic as well. But anyway, internationally best-selling author of To Wake the Dead, which is actually one of them that I haven't read. So I had never heard of this, so I got the book. I took it home that weekend. I was all excited to read a book since, you know, my ex was out of town and I could just sit there. Do you guys ever, like, sometimes it's like, I was talking to a friend of mine today and we were talking about neither one of us have read all the Harry Potter books. And I said, you know, like, if you put me in a lake house, like, for 2 weeks and I had no distractions, I was all by myself, I don't doubt that I would read all 7 Harry Potter books and absolutely fall in love with them. But I feel so easily distracted by other things as I'm like reading them, right? So anyway, that weekend I was by myself. I didn't really have anything to do and I was so excited to read a really scary book. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Okay, this book is about cannibals, just to prepare you for it. It's terrifying, and so it isn't like, you know, I've had a lot of people that have read it since that are like, I didn't really think it was that scary, or no, it didn't do that for me. But for me, at that time, and I'm going to actually reread this, I'm going to try to this month. At that time, it was super terrifying. So let me read the back of it to you. I've read this before in here. I've talked about this book a lot on my channel, but let me read the back of it for you. And Stephen King even quoted and said, if you've missed Layman, you've missed a treat. Jody is pretty tough for a 16-year-old girl. That's the only reason she's still alive, for now. She was sleeping over at her friend Evelyn's house when a group of killers broke in and tried to slaughter everyone. She saw Evelyn spit it on a spear, but Jody managed to escape along with Evelyn's little brother, Andy. Simon was one of the killers that gruesome night. His friends have left it up to him to find the only living witnesses to their massacre, or else they'll butcher his family next. But Simon has his own reasons for wanting to get his hands on Jody. Okay. If you are going to look for a writer that is a fantastic grammatical writer, that is not Richard Lehman. But he's not a bad grammatical writer either. Do you know what I'm saying? But the way that he writes suspense, it's like, the suspense that he writes is often very much like in the daytime, or like in normal places that you wouldn't expect to find it. So it's not like, you know, I don't know, in some dark tunnel in London that you would normally be terrified of anyway. It's like right out in the open. It's like you can't trust police officers, parents, anybody. You can't trust anybody because everybody could be a killer in Richard Lehman's books, and that is what's so terrifying, right? I have since read about 10 of his books. I'm going to go in here and see. Richard Lehman died, God, let's see, I don't know, probably 5 or 10 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago maybe, and he left in his legacy like, you know, 30 or 40 books that are just fantastic. Some of my favorites are, I'll tell you that if you have read this or you want another one of his, that's really great. The next one is called, that I love, called Darkness Tell Us, and it's about a librarian in a small town. And she's closing up one night. I mean, this is just like the genius of his mind, right? Especially to a person that loves to read and loves libraries. I'll tell you who would love this book is Richard at Richard's Book Nook. But Darkness Tell Us is about, I think that's what it's called, is about this librarian, and she's closing up and she notices a note in one of the books, and the note has a $20 bill with like something that she has to go do, very much like truth and dare kind of thing. But if she does the dare, then there will be it will grow in monetary size until she has to do these things which are really kind of like scruples, like moral ethics kind of things. And It gets really scary because really what it's about is like testing your own limits, and she has no idea who's doing it, so they kind of force her into doing it, you know? Among the Missing, One Rainy Night is terrifying, and I just read No Sanctuary, which is 2 stories, and then back to back, that intertwine at the end, and one is about a group of campers out in the wilderness, and the other one is about this girl that is like kidnapped in this house. I don't want to say any more than that, but she has this weird obsession with going into people's houses when they're not there and staying for extended periods of time, like when she knows they're going to be out of town, and taking pictures of everything and living there like it's her house, except for that she goes into the wrong person's house. And that twists into this whole wilderness thing. Oh, his books are so fantastic. And one is not better than the other. I mean, I have never read one where I walked away and I thought, this is just absolute crap. I don't like it at all. So you guys should definitely check out Richard Lehman's Endless Night. It is not on Audible. I'm really sad. I wanted to listen to it this month. Several of his books are on Audible, but this one is not. And it is my all-time favorite. Dean Koontz says, no one writes like Lehman, and you're going to have a good time with anything he writes. And that is so true. I have to say that, you know, like, it makes me really, really sad that a lot of people that love horror novels have never heard of Richard Lehman, because he is, hands down, for me, the finest of them all. I love you guys, and list below what you think is the scariest book you've ever read. So many people have like listed and told me like books and short stories that they think are scary. I want to read the scariest of the scary. So I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.